For me, this has indeed been a very long and public saga. From the summer where the regs review stalemate happened, and there was that passionate discussion relating a potential special session, and really just the ongoing emotionality that has occurred. And I hope that in this committee discussion that we kind of tone down the emotion, but let's get to the relevancy of how we can move forward, hopefully. For me, as a longstanding proponent of electric vehicles, I've driven one for 4+ years and now have a plug-in hybrid. I have understood the importance and the value and the personal decision to purchase an electric vehicle. And I have also seen the incredible frustration and challenges of the inadequacies of our infrastructure. And also for me as a environmental advocate, who is extremely concerned about climate change initiatives, fossil fuel that is polluting our air and creating climate change and impacts on our ecosystem as well as our economics. It's important to kind of understand that doing nothing is not acceptable. But I think the challenge with this bill and how the evolution got to it is quite emotional. And when we had our public hearing, it is important to note that we had an estimation of nearly a 9-to-1 ratio of people who have spoken out against this policy of a council and a roadmap. Let me be clear. This is not a mandate. And I want to say that for the clarity of this committee and the public, and also to our chairs that may have suffered unintended slings of arrows. I know this is not a mandate. And this is a advisory council that is creating a roadmap. But the challenge is we've had a roadmap since 2020. We've had a roadmap that was passed on a bipartisan basis without the tinge of political partisanship that we see right now. That for the past 4 years, there were components of that roadmap that was assigning deep to implement. But as a user of an electric vehicle, we are woefully behind in even implementing a roadmap that we put in place. I can give you an example, and the good Madam Chair and I shared this frustration. When we were driving electric vehicles to come into the Capitol, there is almost like a kind of a struggle to find charging stations in this Capitol building for us as a state and a legislative majority that is advocating for electric vehicle adoptions. I think we only have, at most, 7 or 8 chargers in this entire parking complex. We have to, and I know that Madam Chair knows during session days, we share that I give her a call when I'm fully charged. But the reality is, for 4 years, we had a roadmap. And for 4 years, we have not done the job that's necessary to articulate and make an impression on the marketplace to adopt EVs. So when we talk about the composition of this council, I'm concerned that we're creating a bigger entity, 40 members, with an idea that we're going to get somewhere when we've had 4 years of saying we're going to go somewhere and we haven't done anything. And I think the other critical component of this is the marketplace is changing dramatically. Counter to what the good chair said, electric vehicle sales have fallen flat. There's challenges in regards to unintended learning consequences, impact. We've seen cars in Chicago due to the freezing weather not to be able to start. We've heard from fire authorities to say that electric cars are incredibly dangerous to fight. We're learning as we go. But we have 4 years to try to learn all this. And we hadn't done it. You know, one of the things that I had proposed earlier was the fact that before we impose any guidelines, I'm not going to use the word mandate, but we use the council to kind of create a roadmap for us to do things. One of the bills I proposed early on in the session was to say, before we impose any regulations or mandates on consumers, perhaps our state agencies should fulfill that commitment first. Before you impose it on the consumer, maybe our state government departments impose an all-electric vehicle structure. See how that works. Prove to the general public that this plan works. We're striving to get somewhere, and I know the roadmap is an attractive point to say, I want to get from point A to point B, but we have a roadmap, and we've not met it. And to the good chair's point about saying we don't want to put the thumb on the scale. Well, in looking at the composition of this advisory council, I'm looking at an overwhelming majority party input. I'm looking at the appointment members of a majority party being able to have a 14-6 majority in their appointments. And to think that also for the 4 appointments each, for the Senate president and the House Speaker, you have 4 appointments that are not specified. So I beg to differ that putting the thumb on the scales is exactly what this composition could become. It was one of the proposals to change the composition of this advisory board. And I'm disappointed that that was not heeded. There were other recommendations that came forth in the public hearing in regards to firefighters being on a part of this advisory board to really ensure that the challenges and the dangers of EV fires on our roadways, in our garages, in our communities are managed with expertise. The other aspect is to be able to have different aspects of input and more of an equal distribution between parties is necessary to get the confidence that all shareholders are being heard on this. And I think the good Madam Chair in the previous bills we talked about is truly, we have a responsibility to engage all the shareholders, even the ones that are vehemently opposed to this, so that we can craft a bill that can be implemented, that we can achieve the goals we're striving for. I think the frustration is we're not listening to the people. It seems that government or the majority has an idea of where they want to go, and they passionately believe in it. And I respect that, and I value that. But to not have any substitute language in this bill to account for the input of the hundreds of people that gave testimony, to hear from the leaders of the House and Senate Republicans that offered commentary. This is not a product that incorporates all the shareholder viewpoints. I want to get there. I want to be sure that we get to a standard where we reduce air pollution. We reduce our dependency on fossil fuel. That we're able to create a better future in regards to sustainability. I want to get there. But as we've seen, not engaging all the shareholders, not getting all the perspectives, and looking at all the solutions that are available. I know the good Madam Chairwoman said this title could use some editing. Why are we looking at hydrogen? Why are we not looking at fossil fuel from not fossil fuel, fuel cells? Again, I don't see it in this language. The good chair just nodded and said, we are going to look at it. But the struggle is we're voting on a document that has none of those concerns in there. So to reiterate, I know the good chair, who I tremendously respect and value his thoughts and insights. We may challenge each other, but I have the utmost respect. I think the key challenge and the big question is, do we follow the California standard, or do we follow the EPA new release standards, or do we do nothing at all? To me, doing nothing at all is not an acceptable option from environmental consciousness and climate change and reducing air pollution. But that being said, this bill and the composition of this council does not reflect a working, effective policy initiative that everybody can feel confident in. And I hope that we continue to work on this as a very, very big work in progress. But in my case right here, I'm going to have to vote no, because it does not incorporate all the things that we discussed. And the proof is in the pudding of putting things in writing. So my hope is, as we continue to work on this, as we continue to get to a yes, we remember to engage all the shareholders, to engage all the individuals that will be impacted by this. The most important of all, as I said, maybe government should demonstrate that it's willing to live with the rules that we're thinking about imposing on the general public. So I appreciate the opportunity to articulate some of the passions I have. It's important to have that productive conversation, remove the emotions that has been part of this debate, and really get to solutions that everyone can buy into. One of the proudest moments that we have as chairs and ranking is to be able to produce a product that we can all stand side by side and say, we've worked on this and we agree, so let's make it happen. So I hope we'll do that into the future. But as of today, I'll be of no vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.